Welcome back to the Two Christian Podcast. I am Pat McCool coming to you from the banks of a lake in the deep woods of South Mississippi, and now to my good buddy across the ocean, esteemed psychotherapist and addiction specialist, Richard Turl. Richard, how you doing, buddy?
I'm all right, Uncle Pat. It's nice to see you. Doing all right, thank you. We've got some sunshine over here, which is, not an everyday occurrence. So yeah, doing all right, thank you.
Well, that's what I was wondering. We're entering summer over here. So when does summer begin in England?
About the same time. Yeah, we're the same side of like above the equator, just like you. So very
That same
similar.
latitude there. Yeah. Well, I think it's slightly different because the weather report in South Mississippi starting now to October lasts about 30 seconds. It's like in the weather today, it's either going to be hot as Hades, unbearable, might be some storms, might be some tornadoes, so watch out for mobile homes flying through the air. Back to you at the news desk, Nigel.
Yeah, so we don't have to contend with all of that. We don't have the humidity that you guys have. So yeah, it's like saner. I think it's nice. We have a lot less trailers as well. So yeah, we don't have to worry about that quite as much.
You don't.
I understand.
Well,
I mean, like 80% of the housing stock in Mississippi is mobile homes.
Not 80%. There you go. There you go. Stereotyping again.
Yeah. Well, I live in a castle. I live in a castle, so it's much more solid.
I got you. I did notice on the what they call holiday in England on the beach, they had these trailers. Do they do that? Like these little campers?
Oh, like camper vans.
And that's what people do holiday in, huh?
Like a minority of people, like not many.
It's not something you've ever done, huh?
No.
Yeah, but I kind of wondered. So the Phoebe the other day, I was exchanging email. For those of y'all that don't know, when Richard and I get together, I'm a comedian, so I work about 3 hours a week, and the travel's really the only thing I have to schedule. But when I'm not doing anything, I'm just not doing anything. Richard, on the other hand, is a quite in-demand individual. So when I schedule with Richard, I have to talk to he has people. And his people is Phoebe Unwin, which to my British friends listening is not a big deal. But in the South, Phoebe Unwin's a pretty cool name. And she's a wonderful person. Seems very lovable. But when we exchanged emails the other day, I wished her a happy weekend. And she said the sun has its hat on, so it looks like we're in for a lovely weekend. Just out of curiosity, what would the sun has its hat on mean?
Well, it's a song, for like a kid's song. The sun has got. I'm not going to sing it, Pat, but it's like the sun has got.
Go ahead. I bet you it's a talent you didn't know you had.
I don't know, man. I don't know. All right, I'm going to do it. The sun has got his hat on. Hip 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 hooray! The sun has got his hat on, and he's coming out to play.
See,
it's like a kid's song.
Okay, I didn't know that. I'm thinking if the sun has its hat on, it's not going to shine that much, but it's actually a kid's song.
Oh no, that means it's like the sun's out.
The sun's out. It has its hat on. Fantastic.
Maybe if I like strummed on a banjo while I was singing it, maybe would that help at all?
Yeah. We have the nursery rhymes without the banjos, but. Well, it's good to see you, and thanks to you all that are joining us again. If you didn't hear us in the first episode, we are the two unlikely Christians. We both lived a life of, had a very inauspicious start to life. That's a big word, Richard. Just let you, you're rubbing off on me, getting a little sophisticated. But we had quite the struggles coming up, and it was all changed by our encounter and following Jesus Christ. And we have a passion to share that with other people so they can have the same experience. And we thought a good way to start our podcast would be to tell you the backstories, each one of our backstories, so you know where we were coming from, and some of you may relate. And we were going to, in the first episode, Richard was going to tell his story, and then I was going to tell my story. And then Richard started talking, and oh wow. So we never got to mine because Richard kept dropping bombs that I did. We've known each other for a while and talked a bit, and maybe a lesson for me that I talk too much because I didn't know a lot of this stuff. When my wife is listening in the other room and I hear, oh wow, oh wow. Oh, wait, hold up. You can't just drop that and then move on. Wait, father had a family across town. Now this is okay. Now we're writing movies here. So, anyway, we want to kind of rehash that and go back to the beginning. So if I can, Richard, because I do have some questions, just to recap, you started off in what you called a middle class family.
Yeah.
Well, you have a father that's an attorney, turned into a judge, mother that's a doctor. In the States, that's a crust above or so middle class. So I don't know, but if you consider that middle class in England, in other words, you had a pretty prosperous upbringing. Would that be safe?
Yeah, look, I think both of those professions in England earn less than they do in America. I think, because our medical system is not all private like yours is. So
Right.
doctors earn less, lawyers, attorneys, as you call them, like definitely earn less. So, like it is a bit different. We would like probably hovered somewhere between kind of lower and upper middle class, like, if that's the distinction. So like we lived in a house, it was a nice house that had 5 bedrooms. It wasn't palatial, we had 2 cars on the drive. They weren't like brand new Mercedes Benzes, like it was not, we definitely didn't go hungry. We had nice holidays. Mum and dad had pensions and stuff like that. It was
But
like,
what was kind of what you weren't just lowballing, it was kind of middle class. I mean, not every judge or doctor over here is extremely wealthy, but it is a pretty lucrative profession over here. But so you had that good upbringing, but the bad side, and you mentioned that you loved your father, you have great admiration for him, work ethic, what he provided, but he was a flawed man, correct?
he was he had many flaws. Yeah.
Many flaws, and it was abusive towards your mother, abusive towards you. Did you say
Yeah, violent. Yeah,
violent? So
yeah.
you've had a violent upbringing. Um, Kind of forced your mother into a shell, is what I took from that. So it kind of pushed her into drinking and kind of recoiling. Is that safe?
Well, I think, look, she had a drink problem. I think she had a drink problem coming into the marriage, from what I've been able to piece together. I don't think that the relationship with my dad helped her in any way. My dad was definitely quite controlling, domineering. Um, as you've kind of alluded to at the start of this episode, had a long-term affair, so, and I think my mum was aware, well, I know actually my mum was aware of that, and for whatever reason, she didn't feel able to leave the marriage. So she was very much, um, I think she felt, I don't think she was, I think she felt very trapped in that relationship. And I think my dad did chisel away at her self-esteem. Some, yeah, yeah, for sure. But I think, I mean, like, knowing what I know about how people tick, you don't end up in a relationship like that because you're playing with a full deck in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
So that it wasn't really that he kind of pushed her into it. She was flawed to start with.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like that. It's like that kind of chicken and egg stuff. It's like you attract what you are. It's like that we put out. What we put out, we get back. It's like when I was deeply unhealthy and broken and damaged and all of that, and I hadn't done any work on myself. The women I was with were like that, basically.
You
And that's
attract,
like,
yeah. You
yeah.
kind of attract you kind of attract the same people. So the bottom line was it was a very dysfunctional home, and you just weren't you weren't feeling love growing up.
Yeah, there was an absence of love and an absence of emotional attunement and an absence of, feelings weren't welcome. There was a lot of anger, a lot of anxiety, a lot of unspoken feelings, unfelt, disowned anger, or it was like a soup, and dishonesty and addiction was in there. And then me and my
But
brother
but
were just
but as a
Putin's really.
kid, yeah, as a kid, you just sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. As a kid, you just were not feeling the love. I see kids today, and it just breaks my heart because you're so impressionable at that time. You're born, you've got this love in you. You're looking for the joy and acceptance. You love your parents, and there's little Richard not feeling it. You were meant to be loved. God designed us this way, but you weren't feeling it at all.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
And so that leads you down a path. You start withdrawing, as you said, you lived in your head, uh, which is actually a phrase that I've used before, that I can relate to. And so you just kind of formed your own life, which started early, getting into trouble, you said?
Yeah, taking drugs, selling drugs. Yeah, yeah, misbehaving.
Yeah, just
Pushing
just getting in
pushing back
trouble.
against my dad.
What
Yeah.
were you skipping school, things like that, or you just
By the
everything?
time I was about 15 or 16, I was skipping school. When I was 13, I started with the drugs. By the time I was 14, I was definitely taking something to change the way I felt every day. Selling very small amount of drugs by the time I was 14. Selling more drugs by the time I was 16, selling not insignificant amount of drugs by the time I was 19 or 20. Definitely.
So you're
Yeah.
feeling, and one thing you said, your father had another family.
Yeah, so it came out after my dad's death in 2020. I mean, we all knew there was an affair, like that was obvious. My mum knew, she'd talk about it when she was drunk.
About his affair.
Yeah. My mum really was a woman who really like lived in the kind of victim position, and so she would sort of lament, her situation and dad, and there was this other woman, and it was all so terrible. And I mean, she would never actually do anything about any of this,
But
but
she
she
would say
would.
you kids knew it. It was common knowledge.
Yeah, it was known, and but we didn't know the extent of it. And then Dad died, and his will was read, and there was another house. There was
Wow.
this other woman was named in there, and then clearing the house out, we found pictures and a little bit of kind of investigation and some kind of disclosures by a family friend. Like, yeah, there's a daughter, that I've got a half sister that I found out about like under a year ago. So yeah, a lot of secrets, man. A lot of secrets came out.
Have you met the sister?
No, I reached out to the mum, that's whatever mistress, affair partner, whatever you want to call her. I tried to reach out to her via the solicitors because, like the attorney's office that had to deal with obviously this house that he shared with her and shared ownership of with her was part of his estate. So the solicitors had to deal with her. I asked them to ask if she would talk to me, just wanting to know. I don't know, just wanted to know, like, just wanted to kind of get some kind of understanding of who she was and, that kind of thing. Obviously it was a big part of my dad's life. But yeah, she's never responded to those efforts to contact her. So there's been a couple.
So
So I've never had the opportunity to speak to her or my sister.
did that give you a feeling of rejection that that he had the affair? I guess you didn't know about the family until you got older, so you had already gone
So
through a lot of life changes.
it made grieving for him very complicated. He died quite tragically. He was 69. He had a huge stroke. He died like 4 months later. And he spent 4 months in the hospital, severely mentally and physically incapacitated. And it was a very, very difficult time for my family. It's shocking, awful, horrifying.
And you're
Uh,
finding all of this out while this is happening.
we found all of it out about 2 weeks after he'd passed. So all of the grief, it just got mixed up with a load of anger, rejection, betrayal, and that was very complicated. And the other factor, Pat, that made it very tough was that we buried my father on the Wednesday, and on the Friday, this was in March 2020. So on the Friday, 2 days after his funeral, the UK went into the first national lockdown, and then so I mean I could cry even just thinking about that. So sort of dealing with all of that grief in lockdown, very isolated. Yeah, it was tough, man. It was a tough time.
Well, well, backing up in your teen years, while this was going on, as you're growing up, under the violence and the lack of love in the house, you got into gang activities, selling drugs. You mentioned in there getting stabbed and
Yeah, it weren't like
bleeding out.
It was a lot tamer than that. It just like selling drugs to friends.
But what,
Later on in my 20s, I got stabbed. That was, I mean, really, Pat. I was selling drugs in more significant quantities and up to various kind of things really to make money. And I was trying to collect some money that was owed to me, and the people that owed it weren't happy about the way that I went about it, and so
I love the way you they weren't happy about the way you were trying to collect their money.
yeah, so it was like a long story. I mean, ultimately, the truth, I could talk about it and make it all sound very kind of like gangstery, right? But like the truth is, like I was basically in a world that I didn't belong in, pretending to be something that I wasn't, and I got found out. I was owed some money. I engaged like a debt collector, like quite a nasty person, to go and collect that money. He gave them 24 hours to pay. They didn't want to pay. Like a group of men came to my front door, and I, opened the front door, was grabbed, beaten, put over the bonnet of a car. I don't know what you call it, the hood of a car, and stabbed in the stomach area. So yeah, that was in 2005. I was 25 years old.
Did you say you almost bled out?
I didn't bleed out.
I mean, it was a dangerous situation.
Oh yeah, I had very serious internal injuries, like my intestines were sliced up and my pancreas, and I ended up in hospital a few hours later because I was high and drunk, and I didn't feel any pain, and I was full of booze and coke and bravado, and I found my friends in a bar, told them what happened. They were like, "You need to go to hospital." I was like, "I'm fine. I'm not going to hospital." And then a few hours later, yeah, just this incredible pain. It was a very small stab wound, but it was obviously a very deep knife wound. And
Just trying to send
just
a message. They had enough of you. They weren't just trying to send a message. They could have
no,
easily killed you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I was like, the doctors that operated on me said it was, close, like kind of another half hour, it would have been beyond the point of no return.
Through all of that, did you ever have a feeling? Because through all of mine, which we'll get to in the next episode, there always seemed to be something there. You didn't grow up going to church, or have any relationship with God, or you're just out there on your own. You're not reading, you're not learning it. You're just out there. Was there ever anything that you just felt like something might have been looking over me?
Not at the time, on reflection, there were times uh through my 20s where I would pray because I felt so lost.
What caused you to start praying?
Just felt so lost. Just felt like my life felt so out of control. So like I would kind of turn to something. I always had a belief. I never felt, when I look back on it, I think, yeah, I must have been being looked after in some way. I had an experience not long after I came into the faith, where I was at a church in West London, where the man who evangelized me, a guy called Dan Stanley, it's just been such a huge
Yeah.
part of my journey.
How did you come to that man evangelizing you? Is what I'm
Oh,
getting, kind of what I'm getting at.
yeah. Well, that jumps about a bit, Pat. Like, let me just say this bit. So I was at this church, and like this, well, there was a preacher from America, uh, and she was doing. Done the altar call at the end, and everyone kind of queued up to go and see her, and I was a bit more like reserved and self-conscious around my faith then, and I didn't really want to do it, but my friend kind of made me, and she took me by the hands, man, and she shut her eyes and she just said, it's like I could cry saying this. She just said like, he's always been with you, like he's always been with you. You just need to like to let him in, sort of thing, and that. Yeah, I guess that's where I'm at with it now. Like he was always there. Like,
That's what I'm driving at. As through all of my struggles, and when I look back, I started realizing, because he was with you the day you were stabbed. He was with you when you were this struggling Richard. But what I was getting, how did you first go to a church? Something is talking to you that got you to the person that's evangelizing you, that got you to the church. Just
so
briefly, is it an individual, or you're just thinking, this is something's pulling me to go to the church. Something's pulling me to
it
look.
was like from a place of like brokenness, like like it says in the AA book, beaten into a state of reasonableness, right? So like I was clean, but I was in the grip of quite a nasty sex addiction, and I again just reached a point of brokenness, and my friend Dan had been a Christian for a few years, was very much on that path, but he'd never, when I say evangelized me, in a way, Pat, he did it without saying a word. Yeah. It was just the power of his example, and then my sponsor at that time, he's still my sponsor now, actually. He was also a Christian, him and Dan were friends. And I just saw that they just had something that I didn't have, and it was very attractive to me. And then when I was just really hit a rock bottom with my sex addiction, and I phoned Dan and said, there was a Christian recovery group. We have a Christian recovery group over here called Believers in Recovery, and he was going to a believers meeting that night. And I called him and was like, "Where's the meeting?" And he told me, and I went and I crawled in. That was what brought me into faith. Ultimately, was that.
That's what put you in the life. And to back up to one thing, you kind of skipped past it was the dysfunctional, quite a horrible childhood. And then you quickly transitioned and you said, and then I got into my profession, started making a lot of money. I mean, you made a quick jump from almost dying on the street to becoming a very successful psychotherapist. How did you go from all of that to ending up at Bath University? I've heard of
Well,
it.
yeah, I mean, I did. There was a bit in the middle that I did mention. It's like I walked through the doors of a 12-step meeting. That's the truth.
At what age?
29. Yeah,
You went to
29.
university at 29?
No, I went to university at 32. No, I went to university at 34. I walked through the doors of my first 12-step meeting when I was 29. I got clean and stayed clean when I was 32. And then, so when I was 2 years clean, I took myself off to university and educated myself.
As you were were you starting the relationship with God along the way that led you to
Like,
university, or
I
you
mean,
did that on your own?
I've been through the steps. So obviously there's, like, I mean, the 12 steps are much more widely known in the US than they are here, where it can still feel like a bit of a niche thing. But it, like, I was open to spiritual matters. Yeah. I didn't have a Christian faith. I've heard that the God that's described in the AA book, called like a pseudo-Christian God because of the language they use in that book. That's probably where I was kind of at the time. Yeah. So it wasn't a belief in Jesus. Actually quite resistant to the idea of Jesus, but open to the idea of God. You know, I mean, I think that's an interesting point. That, you know, that resistance to the idea of Jesus would be
I,
something for us to
I,
talk about later.
I
But
yeah, yeah, we will because I have noticed you start talking to somebody about God and they're quick to, oh, yes, I believe in God. Oh, yeah, God's with. When you say Jesus, things kind of get quiet.
they recoil. Yeah, there's like,
That's
yeah, like, oh, and it's like, what? Like, you know, like, look at it now. I think, what? Like, what is that all about? And
it's
actually,
God. Oh, the man upstairs. Oh, yes, I believe in God. Oh, yes, I got, but when you say Jesus, there's something about that. All of a sudden, the room thickens up.
yeah,
So
and
it's,
I, I think it's, just a word on that, like, I think it's remarkable when I look at it, right? It's like, say in London, like, say in Oxford Street, or one, you know, our big central shopping street,
right,
you have all different religions. Yeah. You'll
right.
have people, you know, Hare Krishnas, like Islam, Buddhists, Hindus, giving out literature at different times, giving out literature and so on and so forth. Now, like when I walk past them, this is before I came to faith. When I walked past them, I knew they were different to me, but I didn't recoil from them. When I saw a man on the corner with a sign saying Jesus saves, right, like preaching, I recoiled from it. Right now, like that really interests me, and what, you know, the conclusion I come to is like it's the enemy, man. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're
we
being controlled by the enemy, and the enemy, because both of us, up till that point, we're being controlled by, influenced by Satan. He's real. And so we're being influenced. And so when we hear that, you hear that, it's like, no, 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 back, back, back. You can say the word God because that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. When you say
yeah,
Jesus, you've
exactly.
now gotten specific, and what's ruling our lives, all of a sudden, you've just mentioned the enemy. So that's probably what it is. We're getting a little short on time because the lovely Phoebe Unwin said you have a meeting to run too. But so you end up, it's very remarkable that you did all this on your own. You kept fighting. You kept working to overcome. You should be incredibly proud. You're 29 something years old. You're not throwing your hands in the air. You keep going back, keep fighting. You getting in the ditch and coming back and keep pursuing a life. Personally, I think God's in your life, Jesus in your life. He was watching you all of your life, but you make this determination. You go to school. Bath, I've heard of Bath University and I Googled it, that only 10% of the applicants get admitted to Bath. And you're one of those. So you had a lot on the ball and there was a lot of hard work that went into all of that. So you were always striving to overcome. And so as you go through this, you become a successful professional, you get married, the void is still there because we're all meant to be loved. It's there. The void is there. You're not feeling the love. The things keep manifesting themselves in your life, correct? So you keep the destruction. You're upwardly mobile in your life. You are pursuing it, but that void is still there. You haven't really accepted Jesus. Then you end up in the desert in Arizona where you meet the man who introduces you to the guy that changes your life. Is that what happened?
Yeah, like so there was I'd come to faith, like I'd been baptized, yeah, like, but it was like, you know, an old FM radio when you tune it in and you just can't get the frequency, you know,
Right.
so it's like, and you can hear the voice, but it's just not quite there, right? So it's like it was a bit like that, right? Like the things had changed for me. Like I knew that, you know, I just knew that Jesus was the Son of God, that he died on the cross for our sins, that he rose again 3 days later and ascended to sit with the Father, right? I knew that to be true, and I got baptized on that basis, but I was still riddled with compulsive sexual behavior, is the truth, you know, and then so that caused a huge explosion in my life, and it was very painful, and you know, very painful for the people around me, you know, including my ex-wife, and then I went to Arizona, and that was where things really started to change. You know, that's where things really started to change, and that's really where the story, that's really where it picks up some pace. Not that, I mean, obviously, I think you think it's got quite a bit of pace anyway,
It's
but yeah,
pace there, Richard. You dropped a few bombs along the way.
yeah,
As I said,
it
go ahead.
changes again when we get to Arizona for sure, man.
Well, it changed when you had that moment that we talked about, like in my book, where you just gave it all up let Jesus come into your life. And that's led us to this moment, and it's led you to the peace and the happiness. And that's what we're trying to share with everyone else. You had a moment that you realized all your life. Young Richard sitting in that house in his tears and all of his stress and all of his pain. He was there. He was watching. He was there when you were bleeding. He was making sure that blade didn't touch the right organ. And he was with you the entire time and just waiting. And that's the way God works. That's the way Jesus works. He's waiting for you. But he was, whoever told you that, he was with you all your life. And we'll illustrate how he was with me in the next episode. So he was there, and there's probably some people out there that can relate to your story a little bit. They might have missed out on the almost bleeding out and the father with the second family, but the same struggles. So, all right, appreciate you sharing that, Rich. I will talk to you next week, and hopefully the sun has its hat on, and you can have a lovely weekend in the UK. And love you, man. Talk to you next time.
Nice one. Watch out for those tornadoes, Pat. See you next time.
We have shelters. We hide when they come. Right.
Excellent.
Yeah, we have trailers and we have trailers underground to help us not get hit by the trailers flying through the air when the tornadoes come.
All the essentials in there. You've got the moonshine still.
got the moonshine.
Spare banjo strings.
Yeah. Exactly. Keep us out.
A lot of jerky.
Yeah. That's it. All right, brother. All right. See you next time.
See you next time. Bye, mate.
Take care. Bye.